the morning they left for Kelowna. My mother spent 20 minutes arranging the mail on the front table so it would look sorted when they got back. She did not check whether there was food in the house. I was 14 years old, standing in the kitchen doorway in socked feet, watching her align the envelopes by size. My mother's name was not important to the story the way it feels important now. What mattered was the way she moved through our house in Mississauga, with the particular efficiency of someone who had already mentally departed. She had a blog. Lifestyle content, she called it. Slow living. Intentional home. She posted flat lays of herbal teas she never drank, and photos of our backyard in golden hour, with captions about gratitude and simplicity. She had just under 14,000 followers and checked her engagement metrics before she checked on me. My father existed in the house the way background noise exists. You stop noticing it until it's gone, and then the silence is worse. He worked in commercial insurance. Long hours, early mornings, the kind of tired that looks like contentment from a distance. He was not cruel. He was simply not there, even when he was sitting across from me at dinner. He had a way of looking at his phone that made the whole room disappear around him. 2 weeks before they left, my mother called me into the living room with the tone she used for scheduling conflicts. She sat on the edge of the couch with her legs crossed and told me about the trip, the way someone announces a dentist appointment. 3 weeks in the Okanagan. Her college friend had a property outside Kelowna, with a guest house and a vineyard and a hot tub. And my mother had been planning this with the quiet intensity she usually reserved for her autumn content calendar. I asked who was going to stay with me. She looked at me with a brief, flat expression, the kind that meant she found the question tedious. "Your aunt is 20 minutes away," she said. "And you're not a child." I was 14. My aunt worked double shifts at the hospital most weeks. She had 2 kids under 6 and a husband who traveled for work. My mother knew this. She also knew that she had not actually called my aunt to arrange anything. She told me later, much later, through a court-appointed intermediary, that she had assumed it would work itself out. My father said nothing. He stood by the sliding door to the backyard with his coffee and looked at the neighbor's fence. The morning they left, my mother set 3 things on the kitchen counter: $200 in cash, a handwritten note with the login for the family Interac account, and a number for a plumber in case the basement drain backed up again. The Interac account, I would discover 4 days later, had a weekly transfer limit she had set before their departure. $200 was the weekly ceiling. The $200 in cash was not in addition to that limit. It was the same $200, handed to me in bills instead of transferred, so she could tell herself she had left me with something. I did the math standing at the Freshco on Dundas. I had a basket with a carton of eggs, a loaf of bread, a block of cheddar, and 2 cans of soup. The cashier told me the card was declined. I put the soup back. I kept the eggs and the bread and the cheese. Walking home, I counted. 3 weeks, 21 days, $200, just under $10 a day, if I stretched it exactly right, which meant no transit, no anything outside of food, and only if I didn't miscalculate once. I had been cooking my own meals since I was 11, not because my parents had taught me, but because at 11, I had realized that waiting for someone to make dinner often meant going to bed at 9, having eaten crackers and an apple. I knew how to make pasta. I knew how to stretch a carton of eggs across 4 days. I knew how to be small and quiet and self-sufficient in a way that adults around me seemed to find charming. The way they find a dog who doesn't beg charming. Remarkably independent, my mother had told a neighbor once with the tone of someone describing a feature of the house. What she meant was that I had learned not to ask. I called her on day 4. I sat on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinet. Because that's where the signal was best in our house. and I told her the card wasn't working properly, that I had figured out the transfer limit, and that $200 for 3 weeks wasn't going to be enough. There was music behind her voice, something easy and ambient, the kind of background sound that belongs on a restaurant patio. "You're not being creative enough with what's there," she said. "There's food in the pantry." There were 2 boxes of pasta, a jar of tomato sauce, some rice, a can of chickpeas, and a mostly empty container of protein powder my father had stopped using. I had already inventoried it. I told her that. She exhaled. The particular exhale that always came before a subject was closed. "You'll figure it out," she said. "You always do." She hung up. I sat on the kitchen floor for a while longer. Then I opened her Instagram. New post 40 minutes ago. A photo of her on a dock, feet dangling over the water, a glass of something cold and pink in her hand. The lake in the background was the deep blue-green specific to the Okanagan in summer. The caption said, "Slowing down and it feels so right." 43 comments. Mostly heart emojis. I went to my room and opened my laptop. I pressed record on the camera. I looked directly into it and I said, "Today is day 4. The Interac account has a $200 weekly limit she set before she left. I have approximately $160 remaining if I count the cash. I have enough food for maybe 10 days if I'm careful." My mother just posted from a lake. I didn't know why I was recording it. Some instinct, the same instinct that makes you screenshot a conversation before you decide what to do with it. Our next-door neighbor was a woman in her late 60s named Harriet. She had lived in the house beside ours since before my parents bought theirs. She kept a small vegetable garden along her fence, and a very old beagle named something I always forgot and had to ask about again. She had noticed the car was gone on the 2nd day and knocked on my door on the 5th with the careful knock of someone who already had a theory about what they'd find. I opened the door and she looked at me the way adults look at you when they've already decided. The polite version of the truth is not going to help anyone. "Come have dinner," she said. I made too much. We both understood she had made exactly the right amount. I sat at her kitchen table and ate chicken and roasted potatoes and a green salad, and I told her the truth because I was too tired to construct anything else. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, and then she said, in the careful way of someone who has thought about liability and care at the same time, "I'm not going to call anyone yet. But you should come here every evening. And you should write everything down. Dates. What you spent," what she said. "Everything." She paused. "Keep the receipts," she said. I nodded. The school year had ended in June, so there was no teacher to notice. There was a city summer program I had registered for in the spring, a digital arts workshop at the community center, Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. My mother had signed the form because it got me out of the house on days she was filming content. I kept going because I had nothing else to do, and because the program coordinator, a man in his 40s named Miss Esther Osi Bonsu. Wait, I cannot use that name. Let me call him my program coordinator. He had a way of looking at the work students that made you feel like it meant something. On day 12, I fainted in the washroom of the community center. I came back to myself on the floor, with my cheek against the cool tile, and a counselor crouching beside me, asking questions I could hear but couldn't quite process. They took me to a small room and gave me juice and crackers and asked where my parents were. I told them on a trip. They asked for a contact number. I gave them my mother's cell. She called me that evening. Her voice was very low and very precise, the register she used when she wanted to make something clear without raising it. "The center called me," she said. "What did you tell them?" I said I hadn't told them anything. "You're going to embarrass this family," she said. "If you breathe a word to anyone about this, a neighbor, a counselor, anyone, You will not be coming back to this house. I will send you to your father's sister in Thunder Bay, and that will be the end of it. Do you understand me? I said yes. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I went to my room and opened my laptop, and I pressed record and I said, in the flattest voice I had, what she had just said to me. I said it plainly, the way you repeat a fact out loud to make sure you've heard it correctly. I said the date. I said the time. I described the call. Then I opened a Google Doc, and I typed it out as well, word by word, from memory. I titled the document record, and I set it to back up automatically to the cloud, which I had read somewhere was how you kept evidence safe. The community center was required by law to report the incident to Child Protective Services. I did not know this then. I found out later when a woman named Ms. Nguyen, actually I'll call her the caseworker, arrived at our door on day 19. She was small and direct and moved through our house with the unhurried attention of someone who has learned not to telegraph what they're looking at. She opened the refrigerator. She looked at the calendar where I had been marking off days in pencil. She looked at me. Do you have anything you'd like to show me? She said. I brought her the laptop. She watched the videos without speaking. There were 17 of them by then, footage of the refrigerator on different days. Me reading the weekly transfer limit from the Interac app. A recording of my voice describing the phone call, time-stamped. Photos of the grocery receipts I had kept in a folder on my desk the way Harriet had told me to. When the last one ended, she looked up. You were very organized about this, she said. I hadn't thought of it that way. It had just seemed like the responsible thing to do. She asked me if I wanted to be safe. She used that word specifically. Safe. Not okay, not fine, not better. Safe. I said yes. The legal situation took shape over the following days, with the impersonal efficiency of a system that had seen this before. My aunt, my father's sister, the one in Thunder Bay my mother had threatened me with, had actually submitted paperwork through the family court before my parents even landed back in Toronto. She had been the one Harriet had quietly called. On day 6, the phone call I had not known about, the one that had set things in motion through a channel my mother could not threaten into silence. The financial picture was unambiguous. My parents had spent just over $31,000 in 3 weeks in the Okanagan. The rental property alone was $1,200 a night. There were restaurant charges, winery tours, a spa booking, a chartered lake excursion. The weekly transfer limit on the account they had left me with was $200. This was not an oversight. Account records showed it had been manually adjusted 10 days before their departure. My mother had booked a dinner party for the night they returned. 14 guests catered with a grazing table from a company she had featured on her blog. The backyard was strung with lights. She had pre-written the caption for the content she planned to post. She was standing near the back door with a glass of wine when the doorbell rang at the front. She opened it, still smiling. The caseworker was there, with 2 officers from Peel Regional Police. My mother started to say something about timing. One of the officers explained quietly that they had documentation, and that she and my father would need to come with them. Someone had connected a laptop to the small screen my mother used to play ambient music at parties. I don't know who. In the silence that followed the officer's arrival, a video began to play. My face, 14 years old, holding the laptop at arm's length. Today is day 12, my voice said from the speaker. I fainted at the community center this morning. I haven't had a full meal in 4 days. My mother posted from a winery yesterday. The caption said she was learning to savor things slowly. The backyard was very still. The string lights kept doing what string lights do. My mother turned to her guests. She used the word misunderstanding. She said I had a tendency toward the dramatic. She said the content of the video was out of context. Nobody in the yard moved to agree with her. The caseworker opened a folder and read from it without any particular inflection. No caregiver had checked on the property in 19 days. The account transfer limit had been deliberately adjusted prior to departure. Total expenditures during the absence: $31,412. The supplementary funds left for the minor in the home: $200, with a weekly ceiling of the same amount. Someone in the back turned off the ambient music. The officers walked my parents through the house and out the front door. My mother paused at the gate and looked back at the lights still strung across the yard, at the grazing table, at the guests standing in small clusters not looking at each other. She did not look for me. I wasn't there. I was at Harriet's house next door. We had agreed I would stay there that evening. I heard the cars leave through the kitchen window. Harriet made tea and did not say anything for a long time, which was exactly right. My parents accepted a plea agreement. Failure to provide the necessaries of life under Section 215 of the Criminal Code of Canada. My father received a conditional discharge and 2 years of probation. My mother received a conditional sentence of 6 months served in the community, along with a prohibition from operating any social media account monetized through affiliate partnerships or brand sponsorships for the duration of her sentence. That last part was added at the request of the Crown Attorney, and my mother's lawyer tried to have it removed. The judge declined. The family court terminated their guardianship at a subsequent hearing. My aunt had flown down from Thunder Bay and was present in the room. She had submitted documentation of her own, a detailed proposal for my care, school enrollment in her district, a bedroom that had been set up before the hearing. The judge read from her decision in a voice that had the particular neutralness of someone stating facts rather than making arguments. I moved to Thunder Bay in September. My aunt's house was smaller than ours in Mississauga. The kitchen had mismatched mugs and a coffee maker that was louder than it needed to be, and a corkboard on the wall covered in her kids' drawings and school schedules, and a photo from a camping trip the summer before. It was the most organized chaos I had ever lived inside, and it felt, from the first week, like a place I was allowed to take up space in. She came to my school events. She wrote them on a paper calendar on the fridge in marker, which I found almost unbearably old-fashioned, and then found myself looking at every morning. She asked me questions at dinner, and then waited for the answers, which sounds like nothing until you realize it isn't nothing. I kept waiting for her patience to have a limit. It didn't. I'm 26 now. I finished a degree in social work at Lakehead, and I'm in my 2nd year of a graduate program. I work part-time with a child and family services organization doing intake assessments. When families come in, I do a thing my first supervisor taught me. I make eye contact with the child first, before the parents, before the file, before anything else, just to let them know someone in the room has seen them. My mother wrote to me twice through the court forwarding system. The first letter was 5 pages and it was about her. The second letter was shorter, and it was about me, or at least it was trying to be. She said she understood what she had done. She said she was working on it. She said she was proud of me. And then, to her credit, she acknowledged she had no particular right to say that. I read both letters. I put them in a folder. I haven't written back. I'm not sure if I will. That decision belongs to me, which took me a long time to understand is something I'm allowed to have. She left me with $200 and a transfer limit she had set so I couldn't access more. She told herself that being capable of surviving something is the same as being okay with it. She was wrong about that, and about a lot of things that followed from it. If anyone has ever made you feel that the price of belonging was your silence, that speaking would cost more than staying quiet, I want to ask you what you did with that. Some of us took years to understand that silence never protected us. It only ever protected the people who needed us to stay quiet. Not us. It was never protecting us.